Kia ora, talofa, hello, g'day, champ. What the fuck is crack-a-lackin'? This is the Niche Case Variety Show, and as you may have picked up, not many fucks are given around here, other than broadcasting Aotearoa sporting excellence and just spinning some funky old yarns for Aotearoa sport. That's all we're here to do, and we do it in our usual variety show fashion. Prior to this, we recorded the Patreon podcast. Shout out to all those who support the Niche Case on Patreon, members of the Patreon whānau. In that Patreon podcast, we had discussed a bit of cricket, spin bowling, specifically in Aotearoa. We discussed Kiwi NRL centres. We discussed defence. We discussed how shit the breakers are. We discussed how, fantastic Kiwi NBL businesses. Wide-ranging Kiwi sports discussion on the Patreon podcast. So if you do appreciate and like what we're doing at the Niche Case, join the Patreon whānau via patreon.com/Our Niche Case, EL Niche Case. You're not only spreading the karma, spreading the good vibes, and spreading generous, positive energy. There's an extra podcast there every week as well. And we're always going back and forth with our Patreon. So big it up to all the Patreon whānau. Make sure you check out the Patreon podcast on the Patreon feed and join the Patreon whānau if you do like what we're doing at the Niche Case every Monday and Friday. We also deliver an email banger via Substack, thenichecase.substack.com. Always got extra yarns there, as well as all the regular Niche Case content straight into your email inbox. So if you're a bit anti-social media, if you're just trying to spend less time on your phone or just whatever it is, just check your emails twice a week. That's all it takes, Monday and Friday evening, to get all the Niche Case goodness that you want. thenichecase.substack.com. Join the email banger thing. It's like a mailing list, not quite the whānau. We're not putting the whānau tag on the email list, but it is a email list, and we'll just go with that. Mailing list. How about that?
Mailing list is what I normally go with, yeah.
Postman Pat delivering the mail via the emailing list. And we're always writing about Kiwi sports at the niche-case.com. Wildcard, can you spark it up here in rainy old Aotearoa with a dose of mindfulness?
Indeed I can. The late American poet Mary Oliver, I was rolling through I would say roughly 1,000 possibilities for the quote to pick out. I thought I'll take a Mary Oliver one. Just boundless wisdom there from little clips from other poems. But this one in particular that I've taken, this line, nice and short and sharp: to pay attention. This is our endless and proper work.
I didn't actually know where the quote started because you kind of just flowed into it. I like the flow into it. Pay attention. Can you repeat it again, sir?
To pay attention. This is our endless and proper work.
To pay attention. This is our endless and proper work. Sounds a bit like awareness. Because if you're paying attention, you're automatically aware. And you're aware of your thoughts, you're aware of your standing and relation and connection with other people. So that's a bit of paying attention. And pay attention to yourself, pay attention to the connection. And that's the mahi. That's the day-to-day mahi on the grind, is paying attention to your thoughts, paying attention to your body, and then paying attention to your connection with other beings, the birds, the jokers, the jerrys, the lizards, whatever it is that we share the planet with.
Yeah, including the planet itself. Just, constant attention, constant awareness, endless and proper work. I like that. That's the one thing when you find good poets who can just say things in a way that is it's not even fancy word, what do you call it? Fancy synonyms and whatever like this. It's just really simple, precise, direct, but said in a way that sounds that helps you put an idea to, or put a secondary thought to an idea that maybe you hadn't had before, like STEM. Because obviously it's easy to say like awareness is good. Like, you know, a lot of meditation is referred to as like, there's the loving awareness meditation, things like this. You know, it's what being aware, be here now is just basically another way of saying like, be aware, be present. This is all the same thing. But then Mary Oliver in particular is a poet who had like an extremely elegant way of describing things. And I love that, like, this is because that's the first three words is the obvious point, like that's to pay attention. But the bit about like, this is our endless and proper work. It's like, it's endless. It doesn't stop. It's like it's we will never cease trying to pay, like, for as long as we live. This is the most important thing we can do. And then the proper work is not just like, it's not just saying most important thing. It's saying it's like, it's also proper. It's dignified. It's like, it's the noble thing to do, as well as just being, you know, the automatic thing. Well, it's not automatic is the whole point. It's something you actually have to, you know, you pay attention. You know, it doesn't pay you. You pay it. Like you gotta, you gotta like lean into it in order for it to be. It's like a process you have to go through, that you have to instigate. But yeah, like, to pay attention. This is our endless and proper work. I like the way that's surmised.
You dropped the absolute bomb just then as well. Pay attention. It doesn't pay you. That was a stink face moment. That was disgusting. That was tremendous.
It almost sounds like a Rodney Dangerfield joke. Like, no, I'm so poor I can't even pay attention.
Well,
no respect.
From one, I don't know who that poet was, but
Mary
Oliver, from one fantastic poet to two really shit poets. We are now starting the variety show with a prose, with a paragraph, with a poem. And we once again have a couple of prose, paragraphs, or poems to share based on Kiwi sporting action in recent times. Who's gone first here?
Well, I don't mind. I've got to
step up.
Got a crack at a chuck out here. Like Atlas holding up the earth, like a knight riding into battle, like Kelly Slater upon the surf, like Eve reaching for the apple. Every ref is different. Study the motion. It's all a matter of timing. Steven Adams has a 13-game streak going of winning the opening tip jump ball. Behold, a great man cometh dressed in Stony Creek.
He only dresses in Stony Creek, right?
I'm not gonna be so bold as to say only, but I would say overwhelmingly, yeah. You see the dudes rolling up to like before the game, you know, when there'll be like the fit watch and things like this, and you'll get like the tweets of a few different dudes and what they're wearing, and it's just like flashy dude after flashy dude after flashy dude after Steven Adams and Jandal's wearing like the Stony Creek camo shirt. Then another flashy dude. Like he's definitely his own dude.
I thought you were going to be, because there was the offside situation in one of the football.
Libby Kakachi had an offside goal.
Yeah, so I thought you were going down the ref route about the offsides, or was that a bit of a double entendre, a bit of a Steven Adams
I mean,
thing, or?
I can't remember is the answer to that. I was doing my like nightly meditation last night. Not even before. I had to get it in before midnight. I was up rather late finishing off my the men's premiership write-up, National League write-up, South Central Series National League write-up. I had to pause to get my meditation streak, keep it going, to get something in before the day ticked over. And while I was doing that, it's just this, like, on the one hand, I'm trying to clear my brain and do a proper meditation. On the other hand, I was thinking about how I have to write a poem for the podcast, and this, like, the words, that bit at the start about the like this, like that, like that just sort of popped in my head. So I wrote it down while I was doing that, just like jogged it down on the notes app. And so I hadn't looked at it since then. So I can't remember what the motivation was. But I don't think it would have had anything to do with Libby Kakachi. I think it was just more about the ref throws the ball up in the air when you got to do the jump ball. So, yeah.
My turn. We got the Pukana strikes back. Cody Garbrandt deserved a whack. Kaikara France gave him a crack, or 2, or 3, or 23 out of 41 significant strikes, 2 knockdowns, and a first-round KO. The Pukana strikes back. 2-0 in 2021. Is he CKB's MVP? Definitely. I'll see you in Hawaii. The Pukana strikes back.
I like how we both had a sentence in there which kind of like went away from the what do you call it, like the sort of timber of the poem from the flow, and just like read out a thing of like the mission statement, because you had you had this statistic that like flowed up out of like a sprout from the ground kind of thing, and I did the same thing with the like just straight up. Mine was a little less probably a little less tasteful. I just straight up said like Steven Adams has this jump ball streak going on in the middle of it. Similar I don't know, structural ideas going on there.
Because I thought of mine while I was driving, and I just had this thing in my mind, the Pukana strikes back, and that just sounded really dramatic. And there was like the numbers kind of the Pukana strikes back, and getting to the third Pukana strikes back was a bit more difficult, but we got there in the end. And I added one thing in there that will swing back around at the end of the show. Little foreshadowing there that wasn't initially in my poem, but it actually rhymed. So I put it in just before we pressed record, and it is foreshadowing something. So I'm just getting into a bit of like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones type of foreshadowing. This is going to pop up later in the show, so stay tuned. That was a fantastic poetry. I think we're like
Mary Oliver, eat your heart out.
2 weeks down of the poem, prose, paragraph intros, and we're doing pretty well. Let's go vitamin statistics here, wildcard. We've both got cricket stats to drop. Aotearoa related. What is your vitamin statistic for us, wildcard? A vaccine of statistics, some would say.
Yeah, there we go. Get this. Ajaz Patel has the best bowling average of any Black Caps test spinner in history to have taken more than 5 wickets. Like the best. And it's not even close either. 43 wickets at 27.13. He's not just first, he's miles ahead of anyone else. The next best is Daniel Vittori, which I don't think will surprise anyone, but 361 wickets at 34.15. The thing about Black Cap spinners is they have a distinct disadvantage compared to spinners from other countries, that being that half of their games are played in New Zealand, and those games are played on pitches which categorically do not suit spin. In the last 10 years, test spinners have averaged 50.18 in Aotearoa. That is 3 runs worse off than the numbers in Australia, which makes this country the spinner's graveyard of test cricket. Meanwhile, seamers are chipping away at a very breezy 31.38 average over that same period of time, last 10 years of test cricket, almost 20 runs per wicket better. That is just a massive margin. It's not only that spinners are bad, therefore, it's also that like seamers are that much better that like, why would you even bowl a spinner if you could just bowl another seamer? If you've got a healthy stable of them, then what do you even need a spinner for? Which goes back to Ajaz Patel, because of course, one of the reasons why his average is 7 runs better right now than Dan Vittori's is that he recently took a 10 for. That's one reason. Another reason is that he has played 101 fewer test matches than Dan Vittori. So we expect that to level out a little bit over time but Ajaz has played a little more than the 11 tests he currently has. But another reason is that he has 0 wickets in home matches. In 3 home tests, he's bowled 49 wicketless overs. Like, that's not even a lot of overs, let alone the fact that he hasn't taken wickets in any of those 3 matches. He's pretty much to this point in his career been an overseas specialist, and kind of thinking, looking at some of these stats, how that might actually be the perfect role for a Kiwi test spinner. Like that might be the ideal role, is just be an overseas specialist. Home games, you might get 1 or 2 every now and then. You might have a summer without a game. You might play one, or you might get a couple if it's especially hot and the decks are nice and flat or something. But the dude who comes in and picks up wickets when you're playing overseas in spinning conditions, that specialist, that's ideal. That's what Ajaz Patel has done to this point. That is why he has a bowling average 27.13 and is the best Kiwi test spinner in history based on his average.
When he's filling out like the immigration card, it'll just say overseas spin bowling specialist. It doesn't say professional cricketer, it just says overseas spin bowling specialist. My statistic wildcard, we have 3 Kiwis playing in Australia's Big Bash competitions, plural. So this includes the Women's Big Bash League and the Men's Big Bash League, which is happening right now. Colin Munro is the only Kiwi in the BBL, and we had Rachel Priest and Sophie Devine. They were the only Kiwis in the Women's Big Bash League. So 3 Kiwis playing in Australia's T20 competitions this summer. All 3 have hit centuries. Rachel Priest started the show. She hit 107 not out at a strike rate of 157 for Hobart Hurricanes. Sophie Devine won the Women's Big Bash League championship with the Perth Scorchers, and she had a century, 101 runs at a strike rate of 168. Colin Munro, also playing for the Perth Scorchers, he had a century on the weekend, 114 at a strike rate of 156. So there are only 3 Kiwis playing in Australia's Big Bash leagues this summer. All 3 have hit centuries. So fuck Australia, Kiwis are out here battling away. Same as the Kiwi NRL takeover, same as the Kiwis in the NBL, Kiwis in the A League, W League, whatever it is. We're like little geckos who just squeeze into Australia and fucking wiggle around and just...
Cane toads. Taken over. There's a little less flattering though, isn't it?
And I don't see cane toads in New Zealand. Are there cane toads in New Zealand?
No, I don't think so. So
that seems like a really Australian thing. So whatever they are, they get into Australia, they fucking perform, and then they get the fuck out of there ASAP as well, because who really wants to stay in Australia that long? Deep in the Mangroves wildcard, what do you have?
Yeah, it's normally the Aussie predators that are coming here, isn't it? The possums and the likes. Doesn't often go the other way around. Deep in the Mangroves, Southern United, South Central Series Women's Champions for 2021 and probably forever, because I don't think they're ever going to do another South Central Series. It was very much a unique circumstance for this one. But they lifted the title after a big old 5-3 win versus Canterbury Pride in the final deciding league game. Brilliant tactical performance from them, number of standout players. But what's most impressive here is the long-term journey that this franchise has been on. So you remember a couple of weeks ago when you're talking about the Otago Sparks, the women's cricket team, and they've sort of been on a bit of a rise. Very similar areas with the women's football team for Southern. Always produced quality players, but haven't necessarily had like the full team to go around them. That's been a bit harder to manage. So they started off in 2009. Their first 7 years, they had a record of 1 win, 3 draws, 45 defeats, a minus 145 goal difference across those 49 games, perennial wooden spooners. But more recently, they have, they've found a little more traction. There was a bit of a, surprise third place finish 4 seasons ago where they lost to Auckland in the preliminary final. That squad actually had several key players who are still with the team or had been with the team, had a season off, came back sort of thing. Kelsey Kennard, Renee Bacon, Kirsty Hare, Chantel Smith, amongst 1 or 2 others. Since then, they've had a 6th place finish and 2 4th place finishes. Now they've won the South Central Series. This was a season which started late, which was truncated. And I think it's pretty clear to say that the continuity in their squad, having a lot of players who have been with this team, not just last year, but for several years beforehand, was a major asset for them in this championship run. And also chuck out a bonus stat on top of that. This Southern team, probably maybe this is another thing about having like consistency of players, of like everyone knows each other, they know what they're capable of and whatever. Because they conceded the first goal in 5 of their 6 matches, yet they came back to win 4 of them. Plus, they also won the game in which they scored first. those 4 come from behind wins. Both, like, that includes both games against Canterbury Pride as well, who are like the dynastic team of Kiwi women's regional football. So just this this incredible little run from Southern United. There had been glimpses of it over the last 3 or 4 seasons, but then what they actually turned up and did this time around was, pretty bloody impressive. And apparently just seems to be playing into this wider tendency or pattern within Otago women's sport as well.
Well, that tendency, as you referred to it, actually started with Otago Whalers, if I remember, in the New Zealand Rugby League competition.
That's right, yeah.
And that was their men's team. So I think it's a generally south of Canterbury, and even Canterbury sport is always pretty powerful in Aotearoa, but we're dealing with a nice little period for Southern Rugby League. You're mentioning Southern football there. And we got Otago Sparks, one of the funkiest cricket teams in Aotearoa. Deep in my Mangroves wildcard, going back around to Kaikara France, because he is the only City Kickboxing UFC fighter who won 2 fights this year. Everyone else lost. Well, some people won a fight, but then lost a fight as well. And Kaikara France is the only fighter from City Kickboxing in the UFC with a winning record in the UFC this year. So they had more wins than losses. Israel Adesanya, he was 1-1. He lost to Jan Blachowicz, and then he defeated Marvin Vittori. Dan Hooker lost to Michael Chandler. He defeated Nasrat Hakparast, and then he lost to Islam Makhachev. Brad Riddell had a win over Drew Dober, then he lost to Rafael Fiziev. Kaikara France had a win over Rogerio Bontarin, then he defeated Cody Garbrandt. Shane Young had a loss versus Omar Morales, and Carlos Ulberg in his UFC debut, he had a loss to Kennedy Nchekwu. So all up, City Kickboxing in the UFC this year are 5-6. And Hooker was the only fighter to have 3 fights. Everyone else had 2 or 1 fights. And a 5-6 record in the UFC and 1 winning record fighter in Kaikara France kind of tells the story of how tricky a lot of City Kickboxing stuff was to execute this year. We all thought 2020, pandemic's over, things will get back to normal, City Kickboxing will start dominating in the UFC again. 2021, as we all know, was a niggly bastard, and that played into City Kickboxing with a losing record overall, 5-6, and then most of the UFC fighters from City Kickboxing didn't have a winning record either. So big it up to Kaikara France. He is definitely the MVP from City Kickboxing in 2021. And then there's plenty of opportunities for the likes of Adesanya, Hooker, Riddell, especially to get back on the winning track next year, especially if Israel Adesanya stays in his weight division, defends the title belt. Hooker seems to be going down a weight division, so maybe those fights get a bit easier, but this is all about Kaikara France, 2-0 in 2021, City Kickboxing MVP, and without Kaikara France, City Kickboxing would be 3-6 in 2021 this year. So big it up to Kaikara France, and to be honest, big it up to City Kickboxing for getting fights done with the UFC in 2021. Question time here, Wildcard. I'm going to ask you, who were the South Central Series MVPs on the men's and women's side?
Yeah, this is a really easy one to answer because I actually don't think there's any debate about it whatsoever. The women's MVP was Anneli Longo. No surprises. Someone who's like played 120 plus times for the Football Ferns in a competition where I think there were only 4 past internationals who took place. I'm not actually sure what the all whites numbers were in the men's comp. I haven't checked that. Justin Gully was playing in the finals, so there's at least one. But yeah, like Anneli Longo was just clearly a class above everybody else. She scored, I think she was golden boot from playing from midfield, 7 goals in 6 games. Those 7 goals all actually came in the last 4 games. Scored 2, and she scored 2 goals in 3 consecutive games at one point at the stage when Canterbury were playing for their championship hopes as well, because they lost their first 2 games, pretty much had to win out the entire rest of the way to have a chance. And Annalie Longo almost got them there. It was mad. So she's clearly MVP for the women's comp, and for the men's comp, I think Ollie White is very like a lot of the same things. You can say he hasn't played for the full All Whites yet. At the start of what will hopefully be a long professional career, because it's just clear every time you watch the dude, he's just too good to be playing domestically in this country still. He had 1 year after he left the Phoenix Academy where he went over to Portugal and played academy football for a season with it might have even been Rio Ave, where Nando Peinecke's on the books now. I can't remember. But that didn't lead to like senior football. He came back, played for Team Wellington, played for Miramar Rangers, and has just been amazing since he returned. And clearly is someone who, too good for these shores. He was golden boot, also playing from midfield. I think he also had 7 goals, in fact. So, and plus a bunch of assists for both of those 2 players. Just like, I think very easy MVP decisions for me. Not for New Zealand football, of course, because Longo did win the women's one, but Peter Tako Birema won for the men's comp, I think, because they do this dumb thing where they get the coaches to vote for the opposition players after each game. And so what happens is, for the 2nd year in a row, the standout goalkeeper from the worst team has won MVP, because they get all the points because their team's losing, so they're making heaps of saves. Like, it's pretty dumb. I prefer like the best player from the best team approach. Generally is pretty safe way to pick the MVP, in which case that is not Annalie Longo, but I think she's an exception to the rule because Canterbury only came 3rd. But definitely Ollie White for the men. For sure. But both those 2 easy picks for me. They should have been unanimous, like Steph Curry's 2nd MVP in the NBA, that kind of level of unanimous. Question back to you is, in light of some of these City Kickboxing themes, and you sort of went through what they got up to in 2021. My question is, what is on the forecast for 2022?
Onwards and upwards. And we won't have to wait too long, because it's been announced on February 12th that we will get the rematch between Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker. And this card will also feature Carlos Ulberg, so his 2nd UFC fight after that loss on debut. And we have the debut of Mike Blood Diamond Mateta. So he's from Zimbabwe originally, but grew up in Aotearoa, and he's been part of City Kickboxing as a kickboxer and moving into MMA for a long time now. He's been, right there alongside everyone else that we know from City Kickboxing and the UFC. He recently, I think earlier this year, he picked up a UFC contract, and now he's got his first fight locked in for this February 12th matchup. I think this is in Houston. Yes, the Toyota Center in Houston. So February 12th next year, we will have 3 City Kickboxing fighters. Adesanya versus Whittaker. You got Ulberg fighting this dude, Fabio Charant, in the light heavyweight division, and Mike Mateta is going to be fighting in the welterweight division against Orion Kosse. So we'll see how that plays out. Kai Kara France wants a title shot some stage next year. He is there or thereabouts to get a title shot, so that could be a fun wrinkle next year. Brad Riddell, just coming off a loss, so he will want to get straight back into the octagon. So for like Kai Kara France, Brad Riddell, I can see them fighting in the first quarter of next year. Dan Hooker as well. So it's going to be a busy period, and it's going to be fun. And it starts on February 12th. Like, don't have to wait too long, and especially some of these matchups. Adesanya versus Whittaker, got a debut for Blood Diamond. That stuff is really exciting. So 2022, it's easy for all of us to be like, yeah, next year is going to be fucking better, bigger and better next year. We're coming back. You know, New Year's
Sound like a Warriors fan.
yeah, New Year's resolutions and Warriors trauma packed in my backpack. It's all about next year. But whether it's Adesanya having another title defense or Blood Diamond making his debut, there are some exciting things to get started with City Kickboxing in the UFC next year as well. So it is kind of like, let alone all the pandemic stuff, right? And all the niggle they've had to deal with. So it's cliche, but it's also probably true that like 2022 should be a lot more interesting, I believe, for City Kickboxing and the UFC. One last question. You're a supreme athlete. You can do you can do, 100 juggles on your left foot and right foot with the football. You can do a couple, flipping throw-ins. You can do a scorpion goalkeeping save. You're a talented footballer. You've got all the skills. Also a talented basketball player. You can spin the ball on your fingertip. You can do a couple of juggles with the basketball on your feet as well. You're quite talented. You haven't slam dunked yet, but you've definitely thrown some alley-oops, and you can do a pass between the legs. You can do all sorts of things. I've even seen you do a couple of headers into the net, all of which is to say you're a talented footballer, you're a talented basketball player. And I present to you, New Zealand Breakers and Wellington Phoenix are both based in Australia at the moment. And you're this Kiwi chap, talented in basketball and football. You're in Australia and you've got the choice. Do you play for the Breakers or do you play for the Wellington Phoenix? Right now, who do you want to play for?
I think I'm going to go with the Wellington Phoenix on that account, because I think I would prefer to play for a team who actually is interested in developing young Kiwi players. Would be a start for if I'm in that position. I'd rather go to the team that's picking heaps of players from their academy versus the guys who's hiring their young dudes from overseas. I would prefer to play for a team that their number one priority is winning, and they wouldn't do anything to compromise that, like signing young dudes from overseas and trying to get them into the NBA draft at potentially the expense of your team's own defensive abilities. Prefer to play for a team that actually has defensive abilities as well. That would be on the list. And also for a team whose coach has a winning record. I think that's probably true of a Fatale. It's definitely not true of the Breakers under Dan Shamir. And also I just wouldn't want to be a meme, I'd like to be a serious athlete, not a meme. So I'd still go with the Phoenix on that count, I think.
So you're going to be working on your scorpion goalkeeping saves and triple flip throw-ins and all that shit. You're going to be putting away the basketball.
Yeah. Bicycle kicks and stuff like that. And overs and unders and round the worlds and all them step overs and the funky stuff like that. Footwork.
Sick, bruh. Musical jam time. There's a new track from El Sweatshirt featuring Armand Hammer, which is basically a glorified spoken word poem thing. So it's super avant-garde. Like you're not going to be nodding your head along. You're going to be watching and just like absorbing. Yeah, you're going to be absorbing words from some very talented spoken word artists. But if you are a fan of El Sweatshirt, he's got a new project coming and he's dropping videos and singles like it's hot, according to Snoop Dogg. There's also a new track from Navy Blue. Navy Blue is probably my favorite discovery of 2021. He's got a new track from called Timberwolves, which I believe is off his album this year. Yeah, Navy's Reprise. So he's got a track, it's a video as well, Timberwolves, which is just a cool thing. Navy Blue, once again, one of my favorite discoveries of 2021. And we have a song and a project from a dude by the name of Fable, who is, I think he's from Papakura. He's like just the musical act. He's got some hip hop in there. He's got some like groove in there and just some modern music, but he's just a musical act. And his song Good Thoughts is impossible to like get out of your head. Impossible. I've heard it numerous times. I've been playing it and I just can't get it out of my head. And it is from his project, I'll See You in Hawaii. Did we catch it there? So I added that. So we go back to my column.
yeah.
The Pukana strikes back 2-0 in 2021. Is he CKB's MVP? Definitely. I'll see you in Hawaii. And now we're here talking about Fable and his project, I'll See You in Hawaii, which goes hard as well. But especially if you search Fable Good Thoughts, trust me, you'll never stop humming this tune in your mind or out loud. It's a glorious thing. Shout out to Fable, South Auckland artist and just groove extraordinaire. What do you got for Musical Jam?
Nothing fresh off, like no fresh releases on my jams this week, because I've been spending the last pretty much week and probably the rest of this week as well trying to work through like the stuff I've listened throughout the year to clamp down on my my top 10 albums of the year, and slowly cutting that list down to something that's manageable. So yeah, re-listening to a lot of things. One thing that is making a late push for that top 10 is that that Navy Blue album that you mentioned. You said he's one of your discoveries of the year. Well, you told me about him when you discovered him as well, and then I listened to that, not straight away, but a little bit after. And I really dig that one. That might be my favorite. I haven't listened to a lot of hip hop albums this year, but that might be my favorite. If it's not that, it'd be either Vince Staples one is real good, but it's only about 20 minutes long, which might count against it in the thing. And the Tyler Creator album is obviously also excellent because he's on a hot streak. One relatively recent, like freshest discovery, an album that's making a really late play for this list and genuinely might make the top 10, is this album from Kiwi songwriter Vera Ellen called It's Your Birthday. Came out about a month ago. I think we had some of the like tracks in the what do you call them, our weekly playlist things as well throughout the time. And I did like one or two of those singles, and got around to listening to the album last week, and it's bloody fantastic. Very similar areas to the Emily Adrosa album from last year. So another, Kiwi songwriter who's also like making tunes that are like, strong on the hooks, but also with kind of like a little bit of a distinctively Kiwi like DIY feel to them as well. Nice like variety of songs throughout, probably with a bit of like a punky starting point, but then also drawing upon other influences. Definitely this Vera Ellen one does, as it gets quite like diverse as it goes along. Starts off with like the sort of punky bangers at the start, and then a couple slow jammy ones towards the end. Not slow jam in that way, but slower jams. Does like she almost has like a different voice on different songs as well, which is kind of crazy. So I love that album. It's really making the play for the yearly top 10 as well, which hopefully will be out by the time we do this next week, but we'll see how it goes. A good track for people to go on YouTube and look up from Navy Blue is Rituals, which is a really cool video as well. And it's a great entry point into Navy Blue. It's a bit more up tempo. It's a bit more like entertaining from a typical hip hop musical standpoint. But then when you listen to Navy's Reprise, it's a lot more poetry and insights and quirky kind of soulful hip hop, I'd say. Yeah, like sort of spiritual seeker type stuff. Not a like yearning lyrics and questioning lyrics and philosophical lyrics, and also a lyric about Tom Waits at one point, which was definitely a selling point for me when I saw that. It was like, hey, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like drinking a beer from the Quentin Tarantino movie, pointing at the TV. I felt like that at my own headphones, being like, hey, Tom Waits on a hip hop album getting referenced. That's a dude who's got his what would you say? That's a dude with some widespread influences right there. Well, I thought it would have been because on Rituals he's like boy being a baller like Carlos Tevez. That's right. That's right. I heard that as well. Yeah, that's a football deep cut because like casual. Wasn't there someone else? There was like Carlos Tevez, and there's someone else he mentions as well. another footballer, but I can't remember.
Are you going to find it right now?
I can if you want. You might have to
spin a couple of yarns to finish the show here. I do. Navy Blue has done a lot of, like, I first discovered him because he had a video with Earl Sweatshirt on the Alchemist project, which I think was the first of the This Thing of Ours series. So one of the videos and songs from that has Earl Sweatshirt and Navy Blue together, and the video includes a lot of old footage from when Earl Sweatshirt was at right at the start of Odd Future, because Navy Blue is also a skateboarder and a model. So he was kind of like loosely around some of that Odd Future vibe. And then he went away for his little spiritual, growth or whatever.
Yeah.
And now he's come back and he's putting out a lot of music.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's one of the kids that's on the, like, at the end of Frank Ocean's Blonde.
Sage Erickson, I think.
Sage Alcessa.
Alcesson, yeah.
I'm looking at the thing here, so it's like written by. There's a John and Alice Coltrane shout out early in that song, but like the verse we're talking about, head up underwater, David Edgar with the goggles, and 9 like Ronaldo, Navy being a baller like Carlos Tevez. So
Edgar.
Edgar Davids. He calls him David Edgar, I guess, for the flow, but Edgar Davids was the Edgar other dude.
Davids, yeah, holy shit!
And then obviously a Chuck and a Ronaldo, but yeah.
Edgar Davids was the man, playing for Juventus with the goggles on. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was special player, that dude. Except for when he played for Spurs right near the end of his career. I think he was a bit washed by then. But
like football deep cuts, like as far as midfielders go, Clarence Seedorf is like the ultimate. And then Edgar
won the Champions League with like 4 different teams or something.
Yeah, and then Edgar Davids is like there or thereabouts, like, and then Nedved is like just behind Edgar Davids as well. Some of those dudes,
Pavel Nedved was the Luka Modric of his times for sure. Czech Republic instead of Croatia, but similar players, and both also with like flowing blonde hair and Eastern European great midfielders. Old Edgar Davids and Clarence Seedorf would have been teammates for Netherlands, and Nedved and Davids would have been teammates for Juventus, and Zinedine Zidane would have played with them for a bit as well. And in fact, Antonio Conte would have played for them a little bit. I'm pretty sure.
Do you have the Frank Ocean song that Sage is on? Because it's not him like performing; it is just him.
Yeah, it's like a voice recording that's added onto it. Which I think is him, and it's him and a couple other guys. Just like might have even been Frank Ocean's brother.
I think it's like his younger brother or something as well. And they're basically just having a random conversation, like a minute or two after a song ends, type of Frank Ocean, and it's on the album Blonde.
Yeah, and it's right at the end of the album. It's like the closing track. Where's the bit where it says other songs on the album?
Come to think of it, Fable, that Good Thought song, does have some Frank Ocean-y, lazy melody type of vibe to it as well. I'm just talking shit to fill the air. So I do like that Good Thought song, and does remind me of Frank Ocean. Yeah, Future Free. That's the one. And if you let Blonde, every song in Blonde just play out and you don't skip anything, you'll get some shit like that everywhere. Little bits and bobs.
Yeah, outro features Mikey Alfred, Ryan Bro, which is Frank Ocean's brother, who I think that's the brother who passed away recently, who like died in a car crash or something. Sage Alcessa, Evan Clark, Nakel Smith, and Frank Ocean. And there's just like, speak up, what's your name? What's your first memory? Blah, blah, blah. What's the most amazing? It's just like this weird little like skit thing that they must have done for like a project or something, or I don't know. It's just them like talking about their dreams as little kids, and iconic end to an iconic album.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a collaboration. Like, obviously we don't mind any more like Frank Ocean music. Like, if he wants to share more music, that would be great by itself. But also, like, it would be pretty cool to have like Navy Blue and Frank Ocean work together, you know, in 2022, or to see Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, Frank Ocean, and some of those dudes get together for some more music. Like, because they've all elevated to such new levels since, well, forget Odd Future, like since Frank Ocean last released music, like a couple of years ago, you know, like everyone has gone up neck level, neck level, neck level. So it'll be cool to see them all work together again.
Here's a clip from that to finish on. Mikey says, "What's your name?" Sage Alcessa. "What do you do?" And the answer: "I play soccer and I go to school. I want to be better at skating."
Navy Blue. So check out Navy's reprise, check out the niche case, check out yourself, pay attention to yourself, and pay attention to the humidity around Aotearoa, because it's here and it's beautiful. Life's beautiful. You're beautiful. Kia kaha. Church.